Hello. Welcome to today's live session. I'm Louise Archer. I'm the founder and coach at Retrained Search, and I'm joined by my colleague and fellow coach, Jordan Taylor. Morning, Jordan.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone, depending on
I
where you
know,
are.
yeah, it feels like that at the moment. We're doing so much stuff all over the world. One in the morning, late at night with the US, Australia. So hopefully those of you listening today are in different parts of the world. We did this one to make it easy for those of you in Asia Pacific and Australasia to be able to dial in and listen. So many of you came back and said that the times were difficult for those of you over there. So welcome and good evening to those of you that are. Today, we are going to be sharing with you some tips on how to pitch retained solutions really effectively.
We are. So before I start talking about how to pitch, before me and Lou take you through that, it's really, really important to first talk about when we should pitch. I see retained search as a solution to a problem. And in my experience, when a position is easy to fill because there's a deep talent pool, it's in a great location, it's a sexy opportunity, when all of the stars align, the contingent model can still at times work just fine. However, I've found that when things get more challenging for any reason, that could be a candidate scarce market, it could be a tough location, it could even just be a confidential search. I found that a more rigorous process was necessary. And it didn't make commercial sense for me to do that at risk. So before I pitch, I always take my customers through a really thorough diagnostic, a really thorough needs analysis to understand the position, to put myself in a position where I can pitch and recommend the right solution. I want you to imagine you walk into a doctor's surgery and you've got an awful headache. You tell the doctor you've got an awful headache, and straight away, without asking any questions, the doctor says, "No problem, I've got the perfect tablets." You probably wouldn't take the tablets, and you certainly wouldn't trust them. First, you'd want the doctor to be asking, when does it hurt? How does it hurt? How long has this been going on for? What have you tried to fix the problem already? Understanding the full situation, the full challenge, to be able to recommend the right tablets. And if the doctor does that, then that recommendation, it carries more weight, it has more gravitas, you trust it more. And it's exactly the same when pitching retained.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I also note that just the thoroughness of the diagnostic is what builds the credibility in the
Mm.
recommendation.
Yeah.
The doctor doesn't even need to say, I graduated from this university or I've got X number of years of experience. The thoroughness of the diagnostic and the nature of the questions that they ask give you the faith in their eventual recommendation. So I agree. The diagnostics or the needs analysis is as important as
Yeah.
a really clear and straightforward pitch. So we wanted to talk about that first before we dive into the actual pitch itself. Um, in that diagnostics, I found that the most effective way to do it is to lead it with pre-prepared questions. You don't need to script it or plan it out exactly, but having the questions that you need to ask to be able to get to the heart of, is a retained solution even necessary? And if it is, how can we get the customer to talk to us about the challenges that they've been facing, and ideally get them to admit that the contingent model hasn't been ideal for them in the past or isn't producing the results that they're looking for now. And the order that we suggest to ask those questions is nice and flows nicely if you talk about them first and then ask them questions about their business and then ask them questions about talent acquisition and then probe about current methods and the effectiveness of those current methods, as well as talking about the needs and the challenges. And what this does is it gives you control over the meeting. And so many consultants that I've worked with, and when I was consulting myself, lose control of the meeting because they stop asking questions and the client then takes control of it and takes it where they want it to go. We can keep control of it, and the key to that is having your questions in a sensible, logical order, not just firing them at them, to keep control of it. Once you have established that retained is the right solution to apply, or not, but if you have established that it's the right solution and you want to make a recommendation, then segue into telling them how you'd like to help them. So you can do this by saying, look, I totally understand. Thanks for sharing all that with me. Bearing in mind you will have probed around their challenges. So you can start to exacerbate that pain by saying, look, you're not alone. The market is challenging at the moment. In fact, it's arguably more difficult than it has been for a long time. And many of the clients that we work with face similar challenges. But I can absolutely help you with this, and I'd like to share my thoughts on how. You can then move into talking through how we'd like to solve their problem, but we always recommend just reminding them of your business and your capability and what you specialize in. Or if there are new clients, certainly just clarify. Just for context, we are specialists in X, Y, and Z, and we've been operating this space for X number of years. Just briefly tick that capability box. But I then kind of say, look, this is the bit I want to get to, because for permanent hiring, we now work with our clients in different ways depending on the circumstances. I'd explain for easy to fill everyday hires, we provide a contingent recruitment service. You'll be familiar with this. It's a no win, no fee service. It's often in competition with other suppliers, and there's no commitment on either side. And this works relatively well for straightforward and low level positions. However, when things get more challenging, whether it's a difficult location or it's a niche skill set or it's hard to fill, or senior, confidential, or indeed multiple hires, we instead apply a search methodology. For some of our clients embarking on a period of growth or who have ongoing needs, we use the same rigorous process, but we can offer economies of scale for larger projects. I'd then go on to say, look, in some cases, the contingent recruitment model or no win, no fee model works just fine. However, if it's more critical or challenging, be that because it's time sensitive or a niche skill set, it's necessary to apply a more rigorous methodology. Essentially, and here's the key bit to explaining and pitching retained, some financial commitment from you enables me to apply a robust search process and, importantly, commit to working with you until we reach a result.
Really nicely. And then you need to talk through the process that you'll use. But importantly, you have to highlight why that process is different from the usual contingent process. Mm-hmm. For example, how I might go about doing that is once again reaffirming this is a critical or a senior hire, and it's absolutely imperative that we get this right. I'd really like to work with you on a retained basis to make absolutely sure that we source, we engage, and we secure ultimately the best candidate for this appointment. And then I'd ask them if I could walk them through how we'd like to do that. So this is essentially best practice headhunting. It begins with a full briefing session involving all stakeholders where we define and agree on the parameters of the search and the process, including the full role profile, the functional and behavioural competencies, the geography, target companies, any off limits, the timeline, the process, and your EVP, your employee value proposition. Once we're clear on the scope of the search, we essentially cast a net over the whole talent pool. We identify every candidate across the geographical location who looks to have the right skill set to meet the criteria. And we then systematically and professionally approach every single candidate using multiple methods, including direct but professional headhunting, to gain as much interest in the opportunity as we possibly can. The whole process is really transparent. We share with you every week our progress, a spreadsheet showing every candidate. We can collect as well whatever data you might like, salaries, benefits, bonuses, perception of you in the market even. If faced with a challenge, we work with you to re-steer the search accordingly. And ultimately what that means, Louise, is a long list emerges who are what we call QIA, qualified against the criteria, they're interested in the opportunity, and they've been assessed against the brief, both functionally and behaviourally. And from this long list, we'll jointly agree a short list of 3 to 5 candidates for you to interview. At the end of this process, you will be absolutely confident that you're making your hire from all of the talent that's available to you on the market at this given time. And then I'd go on to reinforce this with evidence of success on a similar project, ideally where a client that you've helped has been facing a similar challenge.
Absolutely. And then I'd make it clear that I want to work with them. And I'd say something like, okay, so look, if what you're looking for is just another agency to send CVs in the hope that one of them is right, then I'm not the right choice here. If, however, you're looking to work with an expert who will apply a rigorous search process and commit to doing that and working with you until we reach a result, then I'd like to be the one to do that. What do you say?
Yes.
Thanks. So this is just a tiny fraction of what we teach and what you will learn with us on the Retrained Search training program. We would love to find out more about your situation, where you're at with this and where you'd like to get to. But we only work with a certain number of people at any one time, and we have some places over the summer. We offer completely free consultations to establish if our training is suitable for you. So please head over to our website and click the Talk to Us button and book in for a consultation to see if it's right for you. Thanks for watching, everybody. We've got a couple of minutes left, so happy to answer any questions that you might have. Don't be shy. If we've got time, we will answer it. Here we go. Go on, Jordan.
When is not the right time to pitch for retained? Good question. In my experience, it's when you don't think you can fill it. Personally,
Yeah.
I would never take on a retained project if I wasn't confident in my ability to deliver. The only caveat to that is I kind of think everything is fillable.
Yeah, I feel the same.
Especially
Yeah.
when working retained, as long as the client is flexible and committed to a partnership and willing to take on board advice and feedback and flex. So the answer to when is not the right time to pitch for me would be when you're not confident that you can fill it and you're not confident that the client would work with you to reach a result.
Yeah, that's what was springing to mind. If it takes a partnership, so if you don't want to work with them that closely or they're unpleasant to deal with, it doesn't matter whether they were willing to retain you or not. It's not going to be an enjoyable process, so I wouldn't want to do it. I also think that if it's not necessary, if it is easy to fill, straightforward, and you can just send some CVs and fill it, the caveat to that is often we think that we can just send some CVs and fill it, but the reality is very different. So I don't always think it is necessary.
Yeah, I agree. So we have another question, Louise.
Yeah.
How do you find the people to talk? I'm assuming this means the right stakeholders within an organization to have this conversation with. Sorry.
Yeah. And my in a nutshell, it's those that aren't getting the results that they need from the contingent model. They are the best people to talk to about it. The people that are getting exactly what they want when they want it, and it's an enjoyable process using the contingent model, are very unlikely to change the way that they're working or to need to. And why should they? Inversely, those that aren't are really receptive to changing the way that they work. And those are the people that I would be targeting.
Yeah, I think as well, it's often the people that are at the sharp point of the pain.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is, let's say a company has a sales director vacancy that is going unfilled or they're struggling to fill. HR and talent, yes, they have some pain because they've got an unfilled vacancy. But the main pain is felt by VP sales or the sales team that can't hit quota because they're a person down. So for me, it was always about identifying who has that specific pain from that seat being empty and that position being unfilled.
Agreed. Do we have time for another question? I've just seen another question. It's a good question in the comments.
Yes, I do.
If you're pitching being super niche, specialist, you know the market, the movers and the shakers, why would they pay up front for a robust search? Isn't that a contradiction? Such a good comment.
Mm.
The reality is that whilst we can know a lot of people in our niche and we can be experts in our field, we can't know everybody all of the time. If it depends what the client's looking for. If the client is just looking for a few CVs and that's all that they need, and they just need to see a few people, 3 or 4 CVs, and they're going to make a hire, then no, it isn't necessary to carry out a thorough search. The difference when we work on a retained basis is we can be absolutely certain that they are making their hire from all of the talent that is available to them in the market at this time. And the only way you can do that is with some financial commitment to be able to make sure that that is the case. So can you send them a few people that are at your fingertips in your network for nothing? No financial commitment? Probably, if you're willing to do that, no problem. Can you make sure that they're absolutely certain they're choosing from all of the talent that is available to them in the market at this time? Not advisable. Too risky to be that thorough.
Mm.
No matter how many people you know, I've picked up search work from specialists that have been working on the position for some time and found people that they haven't. Often the challenge is not necessarily finding the people, it's driving the client to make a decision as well. So there's 2 things that happen when you're retained. Sometimes you find someone that you wouldn't have found without that financial commitment, because you can go a bit further, you can be more thorough, you can talk to people that you wouldn't have spoken to, you can headhunt, you can network, you can seek sources, referrals, and all the things that we do on a retained basis. But often, especially in this market, the client will make a hire, they will hire somebody that they wouldn't have hired in a contingent
Yeah.
process. And the reason they do that is because they are confident and they have the comfort of the visibility of everywhere that you've been and all of the people that you've considered and all of the people that you've taken through that qualification process and that attraction process, that the person that they are or the people they're choosing between are the best of what's available to them, and that gives them the confidence to make a hire. And that's where we really struggle on a contingent basis to give them the confidence to make. We know, right, these people are the best people. If you don't hire these, there's nobody else. But without the transparency and the rigor and the thoroughness of showing what we're doing and giving the client comfort that they aren't confident enough to actually make the hire.
Mm. Yeah, I agree.
Hope that helps, Jordan.
We've got
There's some more
more
questions.
questions. Yeah. So, how can you convince a client who has never worked on a retainer to work with you on that basis? Really nice. I think it's a great time to be able to do that because most markets are challenging, more challenging than they've been previously. And in my experience, it's about educating the client that the market is changing and it is more fierce and more challenging to source, identify, and attract the best talent. It's more difficult to do that than it ever has been before. And because of that, as a recruiter, the way that we're working needs to change as well. We're now needing to be much more thorough, much more rigorous, just in order to be able to deliver the same level of results we have previously on a contingent basis. And commercially, it doesn't make sense for us to put all of that work in whilst at risk. We can't put all of that work in whilst working at risk. So what the financial commitment from the client allows us to do is apply that rigorous process and importantly, commit to working with them until you reach a result, which I'm sure is what you've done in the past on a contingent basis.
And it helps to make it easy for them to step into this. So firstly, you don't need to make it any more expensive. Providing your rates are not sub 20%. So providing you're in that ballpark or more, you don't need to make it more expensive. It doesn't need to be 30% or 33%. Yes, as you would get more advanced in your retained career, then that's what happens. That's what inevitably happens. Your fees do increase, but make it the same. I don't advise making it cheaper. We don't suggest that you make it cheaper. You shouldn't need to be able to help clients step into this relationship. But why not also offer to work for a period of time on a reimbursable basis to remove the risk for them? If they're very, very frightened of that financial commitment, but there can be challenges around that, so be careful, use that with caution. You need to be transparent, you need to have a fixed time, don't make it more than 2 weeks, and stop at that point and say, "Would you like me to continue, or would you like me to stop the search and reimburse the retainer?" Providing you've done everything that you need to do and been transparent and showing your workings and kept control of the search, then you'll be in a great position for them to say, "Yeah, you got this, absolutely, keep going."
Yeah.
Okay, there's another question here. Thank you for explaining the process of retained recruitment. How would you respond to a client saying, why would you not apply the same retained process when working with us on a contingent model? That one's easy. We can't. It's not commercially viable for us to apply the thoroughness and the rigor of what we need to do to find the people in the first place and make sure that we engage them and secure their interest in this opportunity, and B, communicate with you effectively and share with you what's happening to give you the confidence and the comfort to be able to make the decisions at every step of the time when we're working completely at risk. And at any point during the process, you could say, actually, do you know what? We've decided to do this instead, so we don't need you anymore. Or we've had this happen, so we're going to shift things around a bit. Or can we just put a pin in that for a bit? There's just no way that it's commercially viable for us to do that when we're exposed to all of those eventualities that through no fault of their own, not that we're distrusting that their commitment is genuine, but things change so quickly and things happen beyond their control. Hope that's helpful. Anybody else? Good. So we're doing these how often? How often are we doing these, Jordan? Do you know? Are we every 2 weeks at the moment?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think so. Keep an eye on our Retrained Search LinkedIn page, and our feeds will be updating you with our next LinkedIn Live. We're going to run through that detailed diagnostics that we touched on today, which is as important as pitching. So don't miss us next time. I hope today's been helpful. Please head over to our website. We'd love to have a chat with you and find out where you're up to and whether our training is suitable for you. Have a great day, everyone.
Okay,
Thanks,
everyone.
Jordan. See you
Thanks, Lee.
later.
Bye, everyone.